first would be discipline. There is no substitute to discipline. You have to have a very fixed routine and you cannot deviate from that. And I think that's the mantra for every successful person, be it law, politics, Bollywood, anything. So people who are successful have a very rigorous and a hard lifestyle and they follow discipline.
Hello and welcome everyone. We are back again, the entire Superlawyers team, with yet another interesting session. If diversification and dedication are the virtues which you are looking out for, we have the answer here with us today. We welcome our guest for today, Advocate Pinak Mitra, sir. Thank you, sir. Our brief introduction for everyone who joins here today. Lawyer at High Court, Calcutta, Counsel for the State of West Bengal, Distinguished Member at International Council of Jurists, National Board Member, Indian Lawyers Association, and this does not stop here. His fascinating areas of practice include criminal law, constitutional law, consumer law, medico-legal issues, real estate law, family law, and matrimonial disputes. Along with that, he has kept upskilling himself with intellectual property laws and has also delved into the integrities of economic offenses. We are thrilled and excited to have you here today, sir. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation, joining us in this platform for sharing knowledge. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Akash.
Sir, moving ahead with our first question for the day, we all know that litigation is a hard nut to crack, and young lawyers are often apprehensive about this. Can we hear it from someone who has accomplished so much in this field, that how did you navigate your way through and choose this for yourself? Some insights into your journey, sir.
Actually, for me, law was never my first choice. I wanted to become a doctor, study medicine and become a doctor. Law was my second option. The reason why I chose between medicine and law was precisely that I wanted to be a professional and not have a job with an employer above me. So, and be an employee of that sorts. So, precisely that's the reason why medicine and law were the two options for me. So, having failed to crack medical exams, I managed to get into law, give the entrance exams, though without preparation, and I got into the Department of Law, University of Calcutta, to do my 5 years BLLB course. Initially, it was very boring, I would say, because for BLLB, we had several papers related to humanities, and I come from a science background. So initially, it was the first and the second years because we didn't have semester exams at that point of time in Calcutta University. So it was pretty much boring, I would say. But starting with the law subjects, slowly things became interesting. Now, after graduating, when I joined court, I realized what I had heard and what I had seen in TV and the reality is very contrasting and far from what we perceive. The notion which usually people have that, okay, lawyers are very funky people earning truckloads of money and everything. So that's not the reality. It's actually a very tough nut to crack and very difficult in the initial years where you have to sustain and just stay on with a lot of resilience. Otherwise, I have seen many of my batchmates join court after graduating from law school, but within 2 3 years, that energy fizzles out to stay on and hang on there because the difficulty is when you have friends from other streams and you see that your friends who went into engineering or MBA, they are earning a decent sum of money and have a security. They're buying cars or investing. At the same time, a person who has studied law and has joined litigation, it becomes extremely difficult. Not only to sustain himself, but even to take money from your parents or family members to even go to the court, say basic traveling expenses. So, on one hand, there is a lot of embarrassment in asking for that small amount of money to sustain yourself, even though you are an adult and you should be sustaining yourself at 24, 25. But that is not there. Secondly, when you see your friends earning money, having a decent sum of salary at the end of the month, so there is a lot of negativity which creeps in. So it's very difficult to not get depressed or bogged down by all these things which are happening and just stay on. So this is something which people, maybe due to other constraints, sometimes give up, or probably they lose that patience to hang on after a few years. So that's the biggest challenge one has to face when he or she is coming into litigation.
Thank you, sir. These insights are really the practical ones which everyone feels at the beginning of their career. And I guess the motivational mantra or the motivational chant at the beginning of this interview, which you have given, is that to hang on, to cling on, to continue, resilience and dedication. I'm sure this will motivate everyone who joins with us today. We'll move on with the next question. From trial court to high court, thereon to Supreme Court goes the judicial hierarchy. And you have piloted your career through all these stages, sir. So please brief us something about your journey from the basic trial court levels to even litigating at Supreme Courts. Any anecdotes, incidents, and any insights which you want to share, sir?
Yes. So I'll tell you, during my tenure in law school of 5 years, I have done only two internships. One as a judicial intern of a Supreme Court judge, and the second internship was in a trial court for 3 months. I have not done any internship in the High Court. So there was a contrast between Supreme Court and the trial court. So I really enjoyed my internship period in the Supreme Court, seeing the stalwarts in the field of law argue, and also I learned a lot from them. Then coming back to the trial court, especially in West Bengal, it was very difficult for me to understand what was happening, number one. Number two, what I was reading and the reality, what was happening in trial court. I do not think that there is a lot of sync between both of them. Even I have heard judicial officers sometimes say that each trial court have their own separate procedures, which was very shocking for me to, as a student of law, hear and then witness that. So that's one side of the story. Secondly, as far as the High Court and the Supreme Court goes, especially Calcutta High Court, the standard of Calcutta High Court is very high. That standard has been maintained over the years. And people here, Bengalis as a class, they are very academic in nature. So, having had that, they are always engaging in legal discussions and are extremely aware of the nuances of law and the letter and spirit of the law. So, basically, it's my opinion that if you are practicing in Calcutta High Court, so maybe arguing a matter or dealing with a complex legal issue in the Supreme Court also becomes easy, because in general the standard of Calcutta High Court is very high. Now coming to the trial court, with no offense, I would say that there are some brilliant trial court advocates in our state and also across India. But the difficulty is with the way our judgments are reported and everything. The trial court lawyers, even though they sometimes do a brilliant job, they are not recognized very much because the judgments are not covered of the trial courts usually. So this is one side of the story. The second thing is, now for a candidate, he has to decide that whether his area of practice, if he wants to deal in, say, constitutional law, then obviously trial court is not an option for him or her. So then he has to establish his practice in the High Court or maybe in the Supreme Court. If a person is very much interested in trial court, in examination, cross examination, then probably the domain should be the trial court or maybe the original side of the High Court where actually suits are filed and heard. So it depends on the person's choice. He has to first select his area of practice. And depending on that, he can very well decide. And also, sometimes maybe a little bit of internship experience in the trial court and in the High Court is very much required to understand whether he or she is liking the setup, the environment. Because ultimately, after graduating, when he comes into that fold, he has to gel with that and be a part of that. So, in order to do that, it's very much required that beforehand he or she gets a heads up about the things and then make a choice comfortably, and not come to the High Court and spend 3-4 years and then realize, oh, I'm very much interested in trial, and then go back to trial court. Then he might lose 2-3 years of his practical life. That's the problem here. Experience wise, he would gain definitely, but otherwise, in setting up his own practice, some years are lost like that.
Thank you for elaborating on these practical aspects, sir. And really liked the way this practical shock thing you have explained, that we read something in our books, then we go to the courts and realize that it's a different sort of practicality going on, and that needs to be adjusted. So, sir, how was your experience when you first argued or represented, or you went ahead with your Supreme Court matter? So, what was this experience from the state level to Supreme Court?
So basically, I had seen that part of the Supreme Court during my internship, which usually lawyers don't. That is behind the scenes, working with the Supreme Court judge, especially before the miscellaneous days, that is on Monday and Friday, how the research is done and what weighs with the judge of the Supreme Court as to how efficiently and how prepared they are while disposing of SLPs. Usually, it is just a matter of few seconds, and we had to at that point of time prepare a short note and just tell the judge the point of law involved so that he can frame his mind, because it's very fast. So that was one aspect which really helped me during my internship with the Supreme Court judge. The second thing is, in our high court, when I had joined the bar, at that point of time criminal motion bench was headed by Justice Bagchi for a considerable period of time, and he was super quick, and we had to present ourselves in that manner. And so that definitely helped me a lot in preparing for the SLP admission as well. Because the way he conducted motion admission hearings in Calcutta High Court is absolutely similar to what the Supreme Court does during SLP admissions. So that really helped me a lot. And you have to definitely know your brief so that you should not struggle through the papers trying to explain, because you will get maximum of, say, if it's a very heavy matter, maybe 1 minute. And there are super seniors in the field of law always arguing. So being a young lawyer, it becomes very difficult to get an audience from a Supreme Court judge. So you have to strike it out at the very first. Yeah. Basically, it's like hitting six on the first ball. So that's how it needs to be done. That's my take on that.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing these insights. This discussion itself feels like a technical workshop with all these nuances which you are sharing with us. And I'm sure with people in independent practice, litigation, who have their aspirations to reach the zenith, they'll all benefit from this wealth of experience which you have brought to this session today. So your experience is not just limited to India. It is actually from local to global. And if your awe-inspiring trajectory would rest on some professional virtues, what would those virtues be? And if you would like to share them with the juniors?
So far as professional virtues are concerned, if I can say three of them, first would be discipline. There is no substitute to discipline. You have to have a very fixed routine and you cannot deviate from that. And I think that's the mantra for every successful person, be it law, politics, Bollywood, anything. So people who are successful have a very rigorous and a hard lifestyle, and they follow discipline. Second is hard work and being updated. Hard work is definitely very important, which also includes knowing the developments happening in the field of law. Because nowadays, we do not wait for a Supreme Court bound volume to come to us so that we read. We are being updated by different websites, legal articles are being shared. What Supreme Court says in the morning is being reported in the evening. So unless you embrace technology and also keep yourself updated, it's very difficult to sustain. Your opponent can outwit you anytime, at any point of time, if you are not updated. So one is discipline, the second is hard work, and third, to make it good in the field of law, especially as a lawyer, you need a good PR skill. You need to connect with people socially. How do we get clients initially? Because just because I am so son or brother or a nephew doesn't help actually. Same is the case with doctors. If a patient is going to a doctor, he will first think whether he's renowned or not, or through word of mouth. That is how the popularity grows. In the field of law, also is the same. So initially, your clients will come through your relatives, your friends, some teacher who referred a client to you. That is how you grow. And slowly this network grows. So if you have very good social skill that you're connecting with people, automatically you will start getting clients. So one is discipline, that you have to have a routine. Even if you do not have work, there are good days and there are bad days for every lawyer. Even the best lawyers in the country have that. So you cannot be flooded with cases every day. One day might be there, you have a dull moment, but during that period, it's not that you break your discipline, go away. It doesn't happen like that. So you have to have a fixed routine. Second is you have to work hard. And third, you have to connect with people. Because if you connect with people, you will get cases. If you get cases, you have to work hard. And for working hard, you need good discipline. So it's one way or the other. It's a chain between these three things.
You have elaborated this thing in such a nice fashion and also connected that working hard with a routine and then at the same time connecting with people are the virtues. As much as having a routine and working hard is important, it's also fundamental to build connections, have connections, and invest sufficient time and efforts in doing that as well. Thank you for elaborating on these points, sir. Talking on this issue about constant reading and the way you said that today information is ample and it is available at our finger points. So, sir, being someone who has constantly upskilled himself with various courses, degrees, keeping in mind the current legal scenario, transformative changes every now and then in various sectors, what are your views on legal and technological upskilling of lawyers? How should they embrace this change? And how important is this in the fraternity?
So coming to the aspect of the legal field embracing technology, now I believe that we do not have an option. It's no more a choice whether we like it or not. We have to. For example, I went to the Supreme Court recently, the one which we were talking about. So Supreme Court, as you know, has gone almost completely paperless. But in our Calcutta High Court, we are still relying on papers and bulky briefs and everything. So when I went to argue the matter recently in the Supreme Court, so I was given a copy of the SLP by my advocate on record of the Supreme Court, and it was in digital format. Though I have a tab and MacBook and everything, but still having a brief in my hand is what I am used to. But nonetheless, I tried doing it the digital way and used the soft copy of the brief, and I tried going paperless. So I would say it's a matter of habit that it was initially a bit difficult. And I am sure that people who are much elder at the bar, they are having immense difficulty, because if I am facing problems, they are bound to have a lot of difficulty, because that is how they have been trained handling books and everything. I would say that at the present moment also I prefer having a SCC in my hand rather than reading a judgment in the soft format, because I believe that's helpful, maybe also to our eyes as well. But nonetheless, we have to embrace technology. The second thing is that we are keeping ourselves updated through the help of technology. If we do not embrace technology, we will not be updated with whatever is happening. So if a lawyer wants to grow, we are evolving every day. So for our evolution as a lawyer, we need to accept technology. One other way which technology has helped us was during COVID. The courts became sort of both in physical mode as well as virtual mode, hybrid mode. Then after COVID went away, some of the high courts had stopped. Then Supreme Court said that no, you have to allow this hybrid model to continue. So that has been very good, in fact. But I would say that still people do not have that mindset to entertain or hear lawyers who are appearing virtually, which they should, because we are all human beings. A lawyer can be very unwell at times, but maybe he or she does not have a junior or cannot afford to keep a junior. And he has a case in the High Court which might be taken up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and he cannot travel because he's so unwell. At least due to the help of technology, he can join virtually and seek an adjournment, and it doesn't harm his client. So these are some things which has really helped lawyers, and they should be adept with technology so that at least it is beneficial for their own good, nothing else. So these are little facts which are helping us. Then order copies are being uploaded in the server of the high courts and e-courts. From there, we don't require to get order copies, certified copies, and courts are also relying on those things. Then a very basic use of technology is like, say we have 30 courtrooms. Though it has come quite a number of years ago, but still I'm saying, and whichever case is going on in whichever courtroom is being displayed, we can now see it in our phones, whether we have to be in courtroom A or courtroom Z. In earlier times, people had to run and go and check as to which matter is going on in which courtrooms, or the clerks had to do that. So these are the little advances over the period of time the technology has helped lawyers. And also, one more important factor is that with the advent of virtual hearing, even clients can log in and see if they are being represented properly or not. There has been instances where people have taken money in the name of hiring senior advocates, but they never got hired. And maybe some people have done that. So it has got a very bad name and disrepute to our legal professions. So in that way, the client can also see what is happening, the view of the judge, and maybe have an idea about the proceedings, whatever is going on. So as a whole, technology is very important in the field of law, and there is no way that we can do without it in the present age.
So we have very aptly moved on from the nostalgia of big briefs and papers to the sophistication of tabs, laptops, and online resources. And so technology comes with its own checks and balances, own challenges. And you have elaborated in details how this particular procedural technological upskilling is so important in order to be easy with day-to-day proceedings. Sir, what is your constant drive or a motivating force that sustains you in your profession? Any philosophy or mantra that you particularly believe in?
So I have been quite inspired by the story of Mr. Ram Jethmalani. He has been guiding force. During my internship days, I have seen him argue a matter in Supreme Court on the principles of bail. I was awestruck by his aura. And then I read about him, how he struggled and his journey as a lawyer from whatever he was and how he transformed himself. So it was fascinating. He has truly been an inspiration for me. Now, outside the realm of law, I would say I have been inspired by the journey of Mr. Shah Rukh Khan also. He has been a role model for me, not just an actor, but as a personality also. His journey. So these people have had quite an impact on me in my journey as a lawyer, have kept me motivating, and I've seen how they have faced failures and again bounced back. So any successful person, if you see, there's a trajectory of their life. So they go through ups and downs. Even for that matter, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan, the legend in Bollywood, he also had ups and downs in his life and how he came back and transformed himself in the later years. So these figures, I would say any successful person in their respective fields should be a motivation for others and they can follow their example, be it sports, Bollywood, film, politics, or in the legal field. So these successful people should be a guiding force for any aspiring individual, be it in any field. And their journey is quite motivational, the challenges which they face and how they have bounced back. So following that, it has really helped me.
Sir, you have highlighted journeys of resilience from both legal and non-legal fields, and also emphasized on the fact that there are highs and lows even with the best of us, and
Yes.
coming back stronger that matters. At this note, sir, a hectic profession like law sure takes a toll on mental health. How do you balance work pressure with personal space? Any hobbies, interests, or in general, your balancing routine, if you would like to share?
Yes, law otherwise is very taxing. It is extremely taxing for our mental health as well because it takes at least, I would say, 14 to 15 hours of our daily life. Apart from that, you need time for your daily activities, to sleep, to rest, spend time with your family. But unfortunately, if you're in the field of law and especially a litigating lawyer, you do not get much time with your family. So that's a very difficult part. You do not get time to hang out with friends and all. Initially you would, but slowly, as you start becoming busy, the profession will take a lot of your time, so you won't be able to do that. And yes, sometimes it becomes very overwhelming. Then sometimes you also feel like, okay, I want to take this evening off, watch a movie, go out with my friends or family. But you see that you have cases on the very next day, but you have to study. You're forced to study. So that sometimes becomes very difficult and sometimes also depressing. I wouldn't say it doesn't. That's one aspect of it if you're busy. Now, the other aspect is that if you do not have work, which many lawyers faced during COVID. The pandemic was a huge eye opener for everybody. During COVID, most lawyers, the courts were not functional properly. Then slowly they came up with the hybrid model and virtual hearing, but initially it was not like that. So lawyers didn't have work for like almost 2 years. At that point of time, it was very depressing and very mentally challenging for the lawyers to sustain, to take care of their family. And also, there was a huge uncertainty. As it is, our profession is very uncertain. I might have a very good week, very busy week this week. The next week, I might be completely jobless. So during that free time, how you channelize your mental thoughts is very important. It takes a toll. It takes a huge mental toll on each and every lawyer, I'm sure, who is serious about his or her career, because the insecurity also looms large. So how I spend my time is, I was very much into reading. That was my hobby. One of my hobbies. I used to read a lot. But after joining litigation, maybe litigation has taken that hobby from me, because now in my free time I hardly read books, because I'm reading so much during the day that during that free time I do not like reading anymore. So I have gone into watching a lot of content over the OTT platforms. I really enjoy watching all those of any things. Apart from that, I have made sure that during my tenure of practice, I do not go to courts during the vacations. Many people are there who work during the vacations, but on principle, I have made it a point that during the 3 vacations which we have in Calcutta, I do not go to court. And for the good part of the vacation, I do not work. So that's the only time I spend with my family. I love traveling a lot. So whenever I get an opportunity, I leave the city, go somewhere and spend some time. So traveling helps me a lot to keep me refreshed. And we have such an amazing country. I think that we have everything in our country. So I love traveling in India across the length and breadth of this country. So that's the thing.
This was really so enriching to get to talk on these issues, which often people wonder. Like, for example, having these career lows or having these easy days, rather, where there is lack of work, people tend to lose focus. And on these issues, you have elaborated so well, sir. This definitely intrigues me to ask you that, sir, from your profile, since you have this involvement in various editorial and pedagogical activities where you have interacted with students, with practitioners alike, how do you think that your involvement in these activities has helped your legal acumen and expertise? And how well do you enjoy these activities apart from your mainstream litigating role?
Yes, actually, I would say it is very helpful, even for the growth of an individual as a lawyer. I would share an anecdote. During my initial years of practice, till also very recently, during the COVID period, I used to teach some of the law students, some of my interns. Apart from them doing internship near me, I used to teach them about the practical aspects of the legal field and different statutes which are not covered in their syllabus, and give them a basic insight as to how cases are to be filed, conducted, so on and so forth. So this editorial, and also the editorial aspect, I used to edit journals for CHN at one point of time. So what helps is, first, for the purpose of editing, you are going through the judgments which are passed by the different courts. And in that process only, you're reading those judgments. So that is helping you as a lawyer. You are updated. Secondly, this habit of reading judgments, once you're reading for the purpose of editing, so you're covering a lot of judgments in a very quick span of time. So the speed of reading and finding out the important portions in a judgment, it also increases the speed. Thirdly, with respect to dealing with different aspects of law, whether with law students or with others, during that process, you are also revising what you had learned earlier during your law school, or maybe later on. For example, maybe I had read the Domestic Violence Act or the Negotiable Instruments Act properly during my college days. We use it 2, 3 sections maybe in our area of practice, say in the NI Act 138 to 143, 143A, all these things. Only 4 or 5 sections mostly. But when you are discussing the text of the statute with a law student or a fellow lawyer, this helps you revise the entire statute. So, in a way, you are also learning once more, not forgetting things. And in the process of teaching others, you're also revising. So, that really helps. That definitely helps you to again remember whatever is there in which section.
Thank you, sir. At the concluding note, what are your long term plans, especially with your remarkable involvement in several of these professional legal groups and associations? What are your long term plans?
This is a very difficult question for me to answer. Long-term plans as an individual would be to espouse the cause of law to a certain extent. I also have plans to author a few books in the field of law, which probably I will start working on to give a more practical insight into certain aspects of law on the topics which I choose. These are my long term plans so that it becomes beneficial not only for the law students but also for the legal practitioners. There are several books on several legal topics in the market, but I have seen that some of the books are there just for the sake of existing. Rather, it doesn't provide a proper insight into that field of law, whichever field they are covering. So that's one side of it. The second aspect is I have a long term plan of having a legal institute which imparts practical legal training for students. How and when it will come, I do not know. Maybe it might never come or it might come in the recent future, but certainly it's very much important because there are people who are not from the legal background, and the 5 years of education in law school doesn't help as such. That's my take on that. And secondly, most of the law colleges nowadays are focusing on having a fixed number of internships, but it really doesn't matter whether the students are learning during that period of internship or not. So it has become more like a target oriented way of having internships, having a certificate at the end of the month. But in reality, the interns who are coming to the courts and all are basically not learning. I have a regular inflow of interns in my law office, and whenever I have an intern, after a week or so, I interact with them. It's a practice in my office that I definitely ask them for their feedbacks about how their internship experience was in other people's chamber or law firms, and then what they learned in my office. Because if they are coming, they should learn something productive that helps them in their career. So these are certain aspects which I want to touch upon in my long term plans in the field of law. So let's see.
These are amazing plans, sir, and I wish you all the best because these ideas are not just for your own personal growth and development. These are ideas which would benefit us all, especially your key focus on having books that cover the practical aspects apart from theoretical jurisprudential aspects, and your idea of an institute imparting practical training is so very necessary. At the concluding note, sir, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sparing some time from your busy schedule, agreeing on this invitation, coming and sharing your beautiful journey with us. This session was enriching on so many aspects. You have wonderfully summarized how discipline, routine, networking are some important virtues which we all should inculcate. You have also focused on this work life balance. At the same time, sir, you have shared insights from your journey from the trial court level to the Supreme Court, which itself is an inspirational anecdote for everyone. A very big thanks from the entire team of super lawyers. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Akash, for having me. It was indeed a pleasure to interact with you on different aspects of our day to day professional life and also take a sneak peek into my personal life as to how I balance things. This is something I'm sure that even young lawyers will follow, and it will help them also to understand the practical realities in the field of law. Thank you so much for having me.